Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to the pregame and halftime show. And I'm joined, as always, with the head coach of the Anderson Redskins, and Evan Dreyer. And, Evan, I'll tell you what, your defense carried the momentum that you had in the Lebanon game right over to the West Claremont game. You guys went 42-0. Your defense played outstanding.
I think after week 2, we've really improved at the line of scrimmage to be able to contain West Claremont the way we did, Dan, was a huge victory for us. And just getting through that game without any injuries due to the physicality of West Claremont was huge. And heading in this week to be healthy and hopefully ready to go against a good ball club.
Yeah, that's one thing I kept talking on air that I don't think people realize and understand, that it's really, really hard to simulate the wing tee in practice. And for what you guys did, again, just speaks volumes of what you did as not only a coaching staff, but players and their focus. And your kids really did some assignment football and did it really well.
I think the biggest thing is that our kids did a tremendous job. I think our coaching staff did a tremendous job, and our ability to almost create a way to represent West Claremont was really, really good last week by making our young kids stay after and get ready for the West Claremont. So I'm really happy with the way our young guys gave ample time, not only to learn our scouting report, but to learn West Claremont and what they did and how to become West Claremont's offense last week.
Yeah, they really did a nice job. When you can limit West Claremont to only 123 yards and average 3.2 yards, and for 2 weeks in a row now on third down was a big difference. We saw it with Lebanon. I want to say they were 3 for something, and here they were 1 for 10 on third down. Again, I mean, it's just when you can hold teams on third down like that, that's going to win you some ball games.
I think the biggest thing is that we got them in a third and long at the beginning of the game, Dan, so they couldn't run the fullback, Austin Fultz, who I think is a really, really good football player. His ability to get first downs versus West Claremont and Lebanon were critical and had their success. Like we were talking, West Claremont went to halftime down 14-13 versus Winton Woods. Lebanon, they lost one possession. So, they're a really good football team, and our ability to get them off the field on third down kind of helped us propel us to get that margin up before halftime and be able to expand the lead after halftime.
Yeah, and they don't throw the ball that much, and when they do, when they did try to throw the ball, you intercepted it twice by Max Mullenberg and Miles Green Walker. I think he was out the week before, but those were 2 big interceptions as well during the game.
I think turnovers versus any team, but versus a wing tee team, to shorten the field, to be able to create a short field for the offense was key after we turned the ball over as well, Dan. I think those turnovers were really key in a part of the game that people don't understand. Could they make a comeback? Could they? And we were able to stop and get a short field.
Yeah, and you speak of that offensively, minus those 2 interceptions, I thought you guys played really well. You were able to run the ball when you needed to run the ball. And I could really tell when Jackson threw those interceptions, he was a little upset with himself because I think he tried to force it in there when he probably shouldn't have.
I know. I think heading into the night versus Winton Woods, that's going to be a key factor. But versus West Claremont, our ability to help Jackson and get stops after interceptions really, really did a fantastic job defensively. And then Jackson's ability to come back after throwing an interception and score the next drive, Dan, was really key for us.
Yeah, it really was. And you saw a new receiver out there, Connor Casey, played one of his, some action and ended up scoring a touchdown. Got another big receiver, and that was pretty nice.
Connor Casey was a ball boy, Dan, and grew up. And we're happy that he's back. He went away from us for a year and came out of retirement and helped us and did a fantastic job blocking on the outside and did a few things on the outside, catching the ball, and got his first touchdown. So we're really happy with what he represents as an Anderson football player.
Yeah, was it a key for you guys going into the game to get the ball to Brody Foley a lot? Because it seemed like you guys were keen to get him the ball, and he did a really nice job. He had, I think, 70-some yards receiving.
I think it was one of those things where Jarek McClanahan was hurt, and we needed Brody to step up. And Brody's ability to get yak after his catch was key because he's 6'6", 225, and we need to get him the ball more and see if those DBs really want to tackle a guy of his size.
I agree. So let's get into Winton Woods. We know what Winton Woods is all about. We've played them in a couple years in the playoffs, and they're 4-0. Some common opponents, like you said, as Lebanon and Winton and West Claremont, and both those games were close all the way to the last minutes of the game. Just talk a little bit about Winton Woods. Obviously, they're coming in the league. They haven't been in the league, but the Anderson-Winton Woods games have always been special. They've been a great rivalry. Just talk a little bit about what Winton Woods, what you're expecting tonight.
I think nobody wants to talk to them as a great program, top 10 in the state in Division II. After Troy Everhart left, they have Andre Parker pick it up, and he's been able to take them to state finals, state Final Fours, and win a state championship, Dan. And I think people undervalue them because they've been out of the conference. Now they're in our conference, and it's going to be a great test. And I love having a great test. Andre's a heck of a ball coach, and he's got great players, and he does really great things for that community. So for them to be back in our conference, and they were back in the day, they were back in was it QCC?
No, the FAVC.
The FAVC, and then we played in the playoffs in 2000s, and then 2 of the last 4 or 5 years we've had in the playoffs as well. So it's going to be one of those matchups where we have to play really, really well, and I like them being in our conference and our region to see how good we are, and it's a great test for our kids and our coaching staff.
Yeah, and they do have a quarterback that is special. Mikel Winfield he can run the ball, but he can also throw it if he needs to be. So that's someone you're going to have to really watch out for.
The quarterback is a special player. He's got offers from Citadel, and I think he's an FCS player. I think his ability to get first downs, he's definitely the team leader. Everything runs through him. His ability to get third and short first downs by running the football. And every close game they've had, his ability to lead and get first downs and take over the game, he's a pretty special player. And I can't wait to see what we do against him. And the running game, very similar, but yet different. Versus West Claremont, their physical wing tee. Winton Woods' is physicality up front, and their ability to rush the football is very, very good.
Yeah, and they're averaging, I think, right around 100 yards. So they don't throw the ball a ton. They will throw it when they have to. Spikes is another good running back you're going to have to watch out for. But let's talk a little bit on the defensive side of the football. They got a guy that's a standout. I don't know where he's going. Andrew Booker is really good. I don't know if he's going to Ohio State or Maryland. I can't remember. But defensively, they always seem to have some studs on defense.
Yes, back in 2007 or 2008, Dan, they had the great safety and the great linebackers. And I feel like the last 2 times they played in the playoffs, they had linebackers going to Kentucky. They had a D lineman going to Maryland, and now another Booker. And our ability to make sure Booker doesn't dominate the game is going to be key. We have to get him to stay at the line of scrimmage. He's a great pass rusher. He comes off the edge, and it's going to be a heck of a battle for O-line. And we wouldn't have it any other way. Coach Standard, hopefully we'll have the boys ready to go, and we're going to have to be able to pick up their blitzes, and we're going to have to make sure they don't pressure Jackson all night long.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think that they're maybe a little susceptible to, just a little bit more than normal, is they do give up some yards when you throw the ball, and that's obviously your strength. But what else can we expect on defensively? Is it pretty much the same standard that we've always seen with Winton Woods?
Dan, I think the one key on defensively, they do a really, really good job, is they don't allow explosive plays. And if they do, it's not going to be for a touchdown. They make you play the next play.
Yep.
So I think the key thing is that we cannot have 3 and outs versus their defense. We can't just go 3 and outs, incomplete, sack, punt, and have a short field for them, because their special teams, their punt return and kickoff return team, that's where they've been able to win football games. And nobody talks about their ability to make explosive plays, and then the game breaks wide open. Last 2 times, they had a punt block against us in the playoffs.
Yep.
Then they had a kick return. They also recovered an onside kick. Then you take versus Milford last week. They take a kickoff return for a touchdown. Then versus West Claremont, they block a kick. Everything they do in space is really, really good. And I think special teams is going to play an important part for us to stay in the ball game.
Well, we just get ready to ask you keys of the game. You guys you did a pretty good job last week with limiting yourself to penalties, but I think penalties not having a lot of those, not a lot of turnovers. And just like you said, you cannot give up the big plays because it seems like every time that you've played them, just like you said, you had something happen that kind of turned it where you guys tie the game up in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden a big play happens, and you just can't have that happen tonight.
And I think offensively, it's going to be about no pre-snap penalties, no turnovers, no 3-and-outs. If we do that, we got a chance offensively. Defensively, we can't allow them to have explosive plays or like 3-play series for a touchdown. We have to be able to make them drive the field and get them to 3rd and 5 or longer to see if we can get Wingfield, who I think scrambles very well. We have to keep him in the pocket. He makes great plays outside the pocket. We got to keep him in the pocket. Then special teams, if we give up one big play, we'll lose.
Yeah.
And it's very simple.
Right.
They break a game open. It can be 14-14, 14-7. And once you kick off them, if they take it to the house, it's one of those things where the mighty momentum, as I call it, takes over, and they play really, really well after that.
Yeah, so, Coach, it should be a great game tonight. Winton Woods, I'm excited to have them back in the league. It's just always been great games. I know a lot of the local media is talking about this game, and so there'll be a lot of people there, and hopefully the Redskins will come out on top. And so good luck tonight. I
appreciate it, and this is one of these rivalries that I don't get to, week from week. You don't talk about the tradition of playoff tradition of both schools, and I'm excited to see how good we are, Dan, and see where we can take this.
I can't wait either. I'm sure I'll be going nuts like I always do. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So for Coach Evan Dreyer and Dan Albers, you've been watching the pregame and halftime show. Back with Coach Vince Suriano right after this. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to the pregame and halftime show. And I'm joined with former head coach of the Anderson Redskins and Vince Suriano. And Vince, we talked last week about playing West Claremont, and I'll tell you what, the defense the last 2 weeks for Anderson's really stepped up, and to win the game the way they did, 42-0 against that wing T, says a lot about the progression of Anderson's defense.
Yeah, Dan, I thought, first of all, and I told Evan this, that I thought it was the best overall game that Anderson played in all 3 phases put together. All 3 of them were really strong. But I felt that the Anderson defense came to play. It's the most physical that I have seen them. And I think the thing that impressed me the most was, because you and I had talked, you very rarely see a wing T offense anymore. Right. You may, in a 10-game football schedule, when I coached at Anderson, we saw 1 week out of 10, right, maybe 2 if we were lucky, but it was really 1 week out of the year, and that was, Glen Estee running it, which right, is now the influence into West Claremont. But I thought they did a really good job of not getting fooled by the misdirection. And that's really kind of it's a tough situation, because your linebackers have to stay at home to wait for the second back to come across. But yet if they give it to the first back, they have to be in their pursuit angles, or there's going to be spaces for the running back to cut up. So it's really a catch-22, and it's a fine line in your execution. But I thought they really did a good job of everybody playing their responsibility, reading the blocking schemes. That was another thing that they did really good, was that they read the blocking schemes and then attacked downhill. And then I think it was there was a huge stop in the second quarter, where West Claremont had a really long drive and then came out with no points. Right. And I think, that was a little bit demoralizing to them at that point. And the other thing is that this Austin Foltz is really a good football player for you. That number 45 that plays fullback. And in the wing T, Dan, as you probably remember from your playing days of playing against people, is everything in the wing T starts with the fullback. That's where the action starts, unless, you've gotten in a shotgun or something. But everything is built around the fullback first, and then everything comes off of it. Right. So they did a really good job of they didn't stop him, because he's a very tough physical player. In fact, I'm doing the Spectrum game of the week, and it is West Claremont and Kings this week. And, oh, wow. And he is our feature player for West Claremont, when we have pick a player right to watch. So, Anderson did a good job of not letting him have huge plays and not dominating the game. He did have some, good runs, which good players are. You're never going to stop good players completely. You just try to limit them in how much yardage they get.
Do you think that, because, kind of Evan and I were talking about that too, is it that the scout team that Anderson had for practice they just did such a really good, assignment football, like you said, they did when you hold a team 1 for 10 on third down, and I think they only ended up with 123 rushing yards. That's a solid performance.
Right. For a team that runs the football, Anderson did a lot of things right. I would give those scout team kids credit. They did a good job of simulating the wing tee, which is really hard to do in a week. And
Right.
They did a good job and gave them a good enough look that once they got in the game, they understood what was happening to them and they made the plays. But also into that is Anderson's defense was very physical. They were very aggressive. They played downhill. They attacked.
Yeah.
And they did all the things that you need to do as a defensive team.
Yeah, they obviously West Claremont does not throw the ball often, and when they decided to throw the ball, they threw it twice and got intercepted, and those were some big interceptions. I think one of them might have been, like you were saying, when Anderson scored, they were coming down. I think they might have at some point got an interception and stalled drive. So one of the guys was the guy that was been out on injury to get him back, so it was really good to see that they stepped up. Let's flip it on the offensive side of the football. Jackson Kuhn did another nice job, but I watched him, Vince. He threw 2 interceptions, and kind of unlike Jackson. And I think the ones that he threw, one of them he threw in double or triple coverage. I could tell that he was very upset with himself on what he did and threw it. I think he saw it too late, tried to throw it, but you could tell that his competitive side of him, he was pretty upset with himself.
Yeah, I can understand. The interceptions that the 2 that got picked were what you call wheel routes. And Anderson's pretty good at the wheel routes where the outside receiver runs a post or something towards the middle of the field and the inside receiver runs an out and an up, and it's called a wheel route. And Anderson has had a lot of success hitting that because people have been jumping on the post or the receiver coming to the middle of the field. And he got to the point where almost mentally, like, it's always going to be open. That's it. That's where I throw the ball. And you have to remember too, in football, they scout you and they chart where you are having success and where you're throwing the football. Right. And when they practice all week, that's where they throw the football, and that's where the DBs break. And that was kind of happening to him. You said double, triple coverage. Well, really what it was they saw the wheel route and they ran to it because they knew Anderson had been so successful with it. So in the big picture, he had done some other things really, really well. I thought he just forced that a little bit. On the other side of looking at this, one of the things that West Claremont did was they changed from a 4-man front to a 3-man front. So now all of a sudden Anderson's looking at a different defense. Now they switched back and forth as the game went on, but they changed their defense to come in to defend Anderson. Yeah. It's not how they defended the other people in the first 3 games. And so they changed some things, and it looked like I couldn't really understand fully their scheme. But with that 3-man front, it looked like they were doing what Kings had done and brought both outside linebackers over to the strength when Anderson went 3-by-1 or they went quads. Instead of keeping an outside linebacker on each side of the field, they were bringing them both over, or a nickel back, whoever that was, they were getting the extra person over there. And I thought that Anderson did a really good job in the first drive. They executed very well and went down and scored, I do believe. And I think that set the tone for the game for them. It just, they were ready to play. And I think another factor was Anderson really attacked them in space, and they had trouble. They're a big physical team that likes to get after you. They're tough kids. They hit. And Anderson got them in space a little bit and made them defend the whole football field. And although their DBs and skilled people were really pretty good players, They had a tough time getting help from their interior force unit.
Right.
You know, their linebackers had trouble matching up. The D line was not always getting a big rush on the quarterback, and those DBs were kind of left on an island. But for an old cliche, I thought the Anderson receivers out-athleted them. And that it was a big difference between their front end and their back end in their team speed.
Yeah, it definitely was. And Faulkner was hurt, so Connor Casey came in, another big target they had, another tall receiver. But I was talking to Coach Dreyer, and he felt with Faulkner being down, he really wanted to key with Brody Foley. And he did a really, really nice job. I think he ended up with 70 yards, and you could tell that was their key, was getting into that big receiver for Anderson.
Yeah, and that worked, and he's physical. Another thing I had in my notes, Dan, after watching the game, was I thought the Anderson receivers did a good job with what we call yak, yards after. They were catching the ball, and then they were making, 5, 10, sometimes 15 yards after the catch. So therefore, Anderson could throw what you call a high percentage passing game, and then they were making it into an additional 5 to 10 yards. And that really helps you, because now your completion percentage goes up. You're not throwing the ball 20 yards downfield unless you really want to, and you're getting a lot of completions. So I thought the Anderson receivers did a nice job with that. And again, Anderson is running the football just enough to keep people honest. They just can't drop everybody out of there.
Yeah.
And then the quarterback runs with Jackson Kuhn. When he hit the quarterback power is what that's called. That's a quarterback power where you lead the guard up through. And he ran that for, I don't know, what was it, Dan, 70 yards? That was really a big play. And now all of a sudden you can't spread everybody out, because now the quarterback can run the ball up inside the tackles.
Yeah, they did a really nice job. Like you said, all around game, it was just a great game for Anderson. So now they got to focus in on an old opponent that they've had before, and you kind of remember them too back in the day, the old Winton Woods Warriors that they're playing. And last couple of times Anderson's had to play them in the playoffs and had some unfortunate luck. But taking on a Winton Woods team that's 4-0, common opponents have been Lebanon and West Claremont, with both games were pretty tight game up and to the very end. What have you seen on film with Winton Woods, defensively and all around team?
Winton Woods is a little bit different to me than they've been in the past, and when I coached against them, and when Lou Sincar was there, and those people is, they still have people that can make big plays, but in the past they've always lived on what I call explosiveness. Right. Where they maybe get 2 yards, 3 yards, and then somebody breaks a 50-yard run.
Right.
And they're philosophically, they're a little different team, where they're really fundamentally sound. They're very, very basic on both sides of the football. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't get out of position, and they don't beat themselves. They're very well coached. And it was kind of, I remember when I first got to Anderson and Lou Sincar was at then for Forest Park. He says, Vince, one of the things that I always felt with having really good athletes, because the first year we played them in '87, they had 5 kids go D1. Right. He says, you don't have to run them all over the place. He says, you don't have to move them on defense and blitz everybody. He says, when you have really good athletes, just get them lined up and let them play. They'll find the football and they'll run to it. Right. He said, then you've got to run from them or physically beat them with your blocks. But, to go back to it, I think they're very basic and fundamentally sound. You want me to talk a little bit about their offense and then go back to the defense? How do you?
Yeah. Let's go with their offense. And I know one guy in particular that I really want to talk about is their quarterback. He's a good quarterback. Mikael Winfield is probably the center focus for the team. Talk a little bit about him, and then also the running backs.
Well, I know Mikael really, really well, because I trained him in my football 360 quarterback training for 3 years. I started training him going into his sophomore year, then going into his junior year, and then I trained him again this spring. So I understand him really well. He's a very good athlete. He's very smart. He has a really strong arm. He's coachable, he's athletic, and he makes plays. So, he's the guy that I think Anderson needs to be focused on. But when you look at their offense, they've changed a little bit. Obviously they used to be the triple option team, and they still have that in their offense. They still have that. But they're mostly what you call a 10 personnel team, where they have one back, the quarterback in the shotgun, and they do not run a lot of plays. Like, their biggest play is a zone read. Like, if they're going to have 10 runs, if they have a 10-play drive and it's 10 runs, I'd say 6 or 7 of them are zone reads. And then Michael has the ability to hand the ball off. If you look at the quarterback, he almost takes 2 shuffle steps when he's riding the running back. They get that from the triple. That's from their old triple option days, where they really want to ride that guy for a long time. And then Michael can either hand it off, or he can pull it on the zone read and come outside with the football. But that's their bread and butter. Then they also do a little power read where it comes off the jet, that if that defensive end closes, they hand the ball to the jet coming across. If he widens with the jet, then the quarterback keeps the ball and he runs the quarterback power up inside. That's their second best play. And then they like to run the jet sweep. So they'll do those things. But one thing I noticed about them, when they get in trouble or they need to get back on track at short yardage, they'll go to the double wing, triple option football that they used to run, and it's the offensive Cole Rain run. Yeah, they'll go back to that. Like, if it's 3rd and 1, they're going to be in triple option. If they're sputtering against Anderson, look for him to come out and run triple option with Michael under center, because he knows how to do that. They did that his whole 8th grade and freshman year, and those kids know how to do that. So, like, I just watched a little bit of the Milford game from last week. First 2 plays of the game, they're in triple option. The quarterback's under center. So I wouldn't be surprised if Anderson doesn't see that a little bit. The other thing is, in the passing game, they really like the quick game. They don't have a lot of complicated routes. In that quick game, they like to throw the hitch, the slant, the quick out to the inside receiver. And then they'll go up top and throw the vertical fade. And then they like to get Michael out of the pocket, a little bit of sprint out, and move him out of the pocket and, and let him throw on the run. And he does a pretty good job with that. I think sometimes, Michael will look at one receiver and then he gets out of the pocket a little bit too quickly, but for the most part, he's doing a really good job for him. So, I think that they're going to try to out physical Anderson and see if they can push him around a little bit and run those base plays.
Yeah, and so obviously Wingfield is the main guy, but the running back Spikes, how is he? Is he a pretty decent running back too as well, or?
Yeah, he's good, and he can make plays. If you give him a little crease or you miss a couple tackles, he's going to take it to the house. Now, is he a dominating Ty Stilsky type of back? I don't think that, but I think he's a good running back.
Yeah, and we've talked about in games past with Winton Woods, the big thing, if you remember a couple of times in the playoffs, Anderson would score, they'd be right there, and then all of a sudden there'd be a huge play. There'd be a punt block or a kickoff return or something would big. I think, do you feel like that, obviously no turnovers, but limiting the big plays for Winton Woods is going to be the key for Anderson?
Yeah, and I think Anderson needs to be careful also in the punting game, because every game I've watched them, they've put pressure on the punter. So Anderson has to be sound there, good snaps back to the punter. He can't hold it for a long time and then get the ball off, because they'll send 3 or 4 guys after it. They will.
Punter? I mean, what do you mean punt? Dreyer doesn't punt. What are you talking? I'm kidding.
If he does, they better be aware of it. And then if you want me to, just expound a little bit on their defense.
Yes, please do.
They're in a 4-2 box. They like to play with 2 high safeties. And then they'll play with a nickel a little bit in there. If you've got 3 wides or something, they're going to pull one of their linebackers out. It's more of a 4-2-5 4-2 nickel type package. It was almost like we ran at UC, where you'll keep the 6-man box, and then you'll have a nickel back that's almost like an outside linebacker that's out to the strong side. They'll do that. But the one thing I did notice is they like to play what is called cover 4 press. And it's quarters coverage where everybody has it's 4 deep, but the corners press the wideouts and they virtually play them man to man. And Ohio State, when I was at UC in the year Ohio State won the national championship and we played them, that is what they played against us. And when you play that type of defense, the corners almost, like I said, lock up on the wide receivers, and the safeties come downhill really fast. Like if you ran the number 2 receiver on an out cut, and you ran the number one receiver vertical, the safeties will come down and take the out cut. And that was the way Ohio State played against us. For instance, how Anderson likes to run that number 2 guy on the bubbles, they will bring the safeties down after the bubbles.
Wow.
So it's a little bit different. Now, if it gets long yardage, they'll come out of the press and just play a normal cover 4 and kind of back everybody off and just back off a little bit.
Okay.
But that's the defense that they play. And sometimes what they'll do when you give them a 3-by-1, when we were at UC, we called it 4 cheat, where it's cover 4, but they take the weak side safety and they bring him over almost to the middle of the field, and he's really responsible for the 3rd receiver in if the 3rd receiver goes vertical. Like if he were to run right down the hash, the 3rd receiver or a post, then the backside safety will take him. So we used to call that 4 cheat at Cincinnati. And then when people started doing that, then we started throwing to the single receiver on the other side of the 3-by-1. So now we would start running the single receiver in that hole where the safety had left. That was our plan of attack for doing that when people were playing what you called a 4 cheat. So, and the other thing I noticed is they always like to bring 5 in a passing situation. For instance, they get Anderson 2nd and 13 or 3rd and 10. They're going to bring those down 4 plus 1 more linebacker. They're going to always give them at least a 5-man pressure.
Wow. And I know that they have, and I can't remember, he's committed somewhere as Booker. I think he's the big defensive lineman, I believe. Is that correct? So is he going to be obviously the guy that Anderson's going to have to watch out for and make sure they protect Jackson Kuhn?
Yeah, and at times you may have to double him a little bit. I remember when we were just referring to Ohio State. We were really worried. They were so good at rushing the passer that we even put a special protection in where we had the H-back and the running back and, they had a 4-man front. We had them checking their linebackers for blitz, but if their linebackers didn't come, everybody, the running back and the H-back stayed in and just helped the D lineman. Or, block the D lineman. They helped their O lineman. The way we did it was we only had 1 guy that had a single block. Everybody else had double. Now, we called that protection. It wasn't every play, right. But if we felt we needed to get that help, we started doubling people. And I think there's times Anderson, may have to utilize at least 2 guys double teaming the defensive lineman.
Yeah. So what is going to be the keys for Anderson to win tonight? What are some of the things that you feel are very important for them to pull out the victory?
Well, I think they've got to be able to play their game like they've been playing and get the ball out in space like they always do. I think that's important. I think running the football a little bit. And I think also is I'm always big on controlling the football. I was always under the theory that if you've got the football, they can't score.
Right.
And, the more skilled they are, then the more you want to hold on to the football. So, and I think that, again, Anderson has to get that screen game going. If they start bringing 5 in every passing situation, then that's when Anderson gets their tunnel screen, their bubble screen, and all the things that they like to do. And I think on the other side of the ball is try not to give them the big plays.
Right, exactly.
Like every game that I watch them that they have come back in, the game's been really, really close. And then they hit 1 or 2 big plays, and it turns the game around, and it changes the complexion of the football game. Yeah. So, how do you do that? Well, you keep everything inside of you. When you tackle, you wrap up, and everybody plays their responsibility and gets off blocks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited. I know you've got your game tonight. You'll be, what'd you say, West Claremont and Kings, and you get to
Yes.
see your former player and Aaron Zabo as the offensive coordinator. Hopefully get to catch up with him. And so that should be a good game too as well. Is that game at West Claremont or is that at Kings?
Yeah, it is at West Claremont. Yes.
Okay. So, but that's good. So you can check out Vince there on Spectrum Television on that game, or you can check us out too as well on USBN Sports. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Vince, thanks again as always for joining us. And so for Vince Suriano, Dan Ambers, you've been watching the pregame and halftime show. Back with game action right.